We're joined next by Emad Mostaque, founder and CEO of Stability AI, and Alexandr Wang, CEO and founder of Scale AI. Stability AI focuses on building the foundation to activate humanity's potential through AI. Previously, Emad led multiple technology initiatives with multilaterals and governments and was a hedge fund manager and autism researcher. Emad is a passionate video game player and computational theologist. Please welcome to the stage Emad Mostaque and Alexandr Wang.
All righty, excited for the last session of the day with Emad. So Emad is the founder and CEO of Stability AI, who many of you will know from Stable Diffusion, which blew up the internet over the past few months. And is probably one of the coolest things happening in AI today. So thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having me, Alexander. I remember we met in London a few weeks ago, and you're like, "What? It's been 6 months since the release?" And I was like, "No, it's been 6 weeks." What are you talking about?
Yeah, you had a good line where you've created a time dilation machine in your backyard.
Well, that's the secret.
Yeah. Sorry, proprietary secret. My bad. So I'm excited to, we'll just kick off by talking through that Scale AI and Stability AI are announcing a partnership today, actually. Both Scale and Stability AI have very resonant missions. Our mission is to accelerate the development of AI applications in order to build foundations to enable human potential. And we're both aiming to democratize as much of this technology as possible and make it accessible to as much of the world as possible, which I'm deeply passionate about. So I'm super excited about our partnership. I think we're going to be able to combine Scale's data engine and all the great models and research that Stability AI is doing to build incredible things. What are you excited about, Emad?
I mean, it's going to be awesome, right? I think that you've seen some very interesting things in the AI paradigm. It was bigger and bigger and bigger models, like 100 billion, 500 billion, soon a trillion parameters. But I think a lot of what the data showed isn't about model size, like the chinchilla scaling paper from DeepMind, which was like, is it trained more epochs? Actually, it's better data. And it's more diverse data. So as you have more diverse data, you have more and better outcomes. And this is what we've seen. Like Stable Diffusion itself is only a 890 million parameter model versus, you'd expect it to be billions and billions. It's 100,000 gigabytes in a 2 gigabyte file. The data isn't amazing, but it's better than what was out there. And that's why we pushed the LAION data set. And now I think the potential for there to be global data sets. One of the things we're doing is country strategies, where we have an India model, a Nepalese model, a Malawian model, and others, combined with feedback loops to make them even smaller, these models, will be the key thing. So one of the things that Scale and Stability have collaborated on is the TRLX Instruct dataset. Because Stability isn't just image. We actually are fully multimodal. We do image, language, audio. We're doing protein folding that was just announced. It started training now, code models, et cetera.
And audio.
Audio, yeah, forgot about that. We snuck that out because we didn't want some people to come after us.
Oh, yeah.
The artist thing. Although we've got some great speech-to-speech coming. The TRLX thing allows you to instruct the models down because these models are big neural networks and they're kind of very general. But figuring out which things get lit up on the neurons allows you to compress that. So the work that kind of you've done into your data engines will really allow us to have personalized models at scale and then on the edge. And this is the exciting thing. Stable Diffusion is now working on an iPhone. If you think about how crazy that is, like just even a year ago, imagine what the future is. The future is everybody's got their own models, their own data, because that's what really makes a meaningful difference. 100,000 gigabytes is information, 2 gigabytes is knowledge, but it's about when you bring yourself into it, or your company, or your culture. You need to have the models and the data to do that. I think this is why it's going to be a great partnership.
Yeah, I'm super excited. There's so many interesting jumping off points from both not only our partnership, but also the incredible work that you've done. I'm curious just to start out with maybe there's some fun stories. Stable Diffusion, again, it is like really hard to understate how much is broken the internet. What are some of the coolest things you've seen as a result of open sourcing and making this technology very free and open?
There have literally been hundreds of things. Every time I open up my inbox, I'm just like, look what I've done, look what I've done, look what I've done. I think that one of the coolest things is when someone took Stable Diffusion, combined it with Dream Booth, which is what Google open sourced to take Imagen, which unfortunately isn't open sourced, and customize it. So put yourself into the model. So September 17th, I believe it was 48 gigabytes to run it. And put yourself in the model, and you can put yourself in any scene. By September 31st, it was 8 gigabytes. They'd optimized it down all the way so that it was accessible on any video card. Similarly, when we were creating Stable Diffusion, we were like, we're going to hit 24 gigabyte VRAM, so it's accessible for anyone with a 3090. Now it's 3 gigabytes. Like, this optimization process from the open source community has been insane. Beyond that, it's some of this kind of taking it and applying it to some of the 3D worlds and the potential. You can literally see the future happening in front of you. That Ready Player One future, minus the whiny teenagers and microtransactions. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, no, it's pretty incredible. You know, maybe it'd be cool to talk through Stability AI's approach to AI, which has actually been extremely, you know, I almost liken it to a breath of fresh air in a community that deeply needed sort of more open source, more open development, more openness in general. You know, maybe walk us through what is Stability's philosophy and approach to research and approach to building your company.
Yeah, so I think, you know, Stability came out of like EleutherAI and the open source research collectives and tried to put a bit more order and structure and resource behind that. Because this technology is just too cool and too powerful. This is the reality. Classic AI was big data and then extending that and targeting Alexandr with like the latest kicks or whatever. You know, this new models, they take principle-based analysis, do the transformer-based architectures and the attention. I mean, a 2 gigabyte file that can recreate almost any style from. That's insane. But it's the human brain. It's type 1 versus type 2 brains. And so I think what happened, understandably maybe, is that a lot of companies shied back. Because it's like, if you have an AI that can do anything, then it might do something bad. So it's too dangerous to release. Whereas my take was like, OK, that means Indians can't have it. You know, like, when is it ever going to be diffused to the world? When will ever be enough in terms of some of these ethical things? And who gets to make these decisions? I think it should be open, and it should be before this goes massive and someone does it with bad intentions that we get this technology out there to open up the dialogue. And I created Stability to basically be Switzerland. It was a place whereby we take the heat, we take some of the positivity, but we collaborate and cooperate with everyone. We will do technology transfer. We will listen. So, you know, like things like building artist attribution programs and other things, you know. Things about on deepfakes. Obviously, that's going to be an issue. We just announced a $200,000 prize for the best open source deepfake application. So that's kind of where we try to put it in the center to coordinate, because no one was coordinating this, and all the decisions were being made behind closed doors, which again is the prerogative of these entities, but there was no other alternative.
Yeah, and I think one part of it, you know, to add on to your point, is that, you know, there were these the large companies that were doing a lot of the AI development. They also had very big businesses that they had to protect, which created this sort of mixed incentive where, you know, they weren't building AI for AI's sake per se. They were building AI for the sake of, you know, ultimately the sake of their larger businesses.
Yeah, I think there was that business imperative, and then there's also this AGI imperative. Like, you know, you have DeepMind, OpenAI, and others. There was a big focus on artificial general intelligence around these models, and it's fine. But I'm more interested in augmented intelligence and AI that could push people forward, and I saw a lack of anyone who was thinking, how do we bring the whole world up here, as opposed to we build AGI and then we can extract massive economic rents from it. Because the idea of any corporation, any individual, like, having control of the most powerful technology in the world and having a monopoly on that felt a bit wrong. You know, it was more like, this is the first technology that allows us to go beyond. It allows us to communicate. Like, one of the things I talk about is, we're having a chat here because it's the easiest thing, you know, we got a nice vibe. Text is a bit more difficult, you know, like you go and you write hard, and that's why journalists get paid, or writers or whatever. Visual is the most difficult and the most painful. Be it art or be it PowerPoints. PowerPoints suck, right? And we've all been there, you know. So in a few years, we'll have our open source PowerPoint replacement. I'll get a Nobel Prize, and then all this opprobrium will kind of be there. It's difficult, but suddenly this technology makes it easy. Anyone can communicate visually in seconds. How insane is that? And so, like I said, the idea that this would be monopolized by any entity, it feels more like a public good, right? It feels like the internet, part 2, is what I call kind of the intelligent internet. Everyone's got this AI at the edge, and it allows them to communicate with each other in any way. And I think that's been the promise, and it's kind of here now, even though it does sound a bit like Pied Piper. But that's all right. Yeah.
Scale named a product called Nucleus. So, you know,
well, there you go.
We're familiar with the Silicon Valley references.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to, maybe one thing, we've talked about this privately, but what are your thoughts on AGI as a concept?
So AGI is really interesting, right? You get some people who are very religious about it, shall we say. It's a terrifying thing. What if you have an AI that can do everything? Will it be aligned with you? Will it not be aligned with you? Will it create a utopia or turn us all into paper clips? My basic thinking around this was this. And, you know, Eleuther split again into Stability AI and then Conjecture that does alignment full time. if we train on data sets that are very Western, based on the internet, which we all know is a bit of a tip, like remember that Tay thing, that chatbot? She turned into a Nazi in a day. We're probably all going to die, and I'd rather not have that happen. And I have this vision of every single country having their own data sets and models, every single race being represented and diverse. Like Stable Diffusion is based online, which is a snapshot of the internet. It's provably not diverse, but you can actually see what's in there. And you can do better. Like in Japan, a whole series of researchers retrained the text encoder so that salaryman would no longer mean a happy man with lots of salary, but a very sad man, These cultural nuances and making technology that isn't designed to target us, but instead augment our potential, I believe is a necessary but not sufficient condition for aligned artificial intelligence. And again, my focus is not building an AGI. It's about seeing how can we lift up all the humans and let everyone activate their potential. But I think if people take these additional data sets and this diversity and we widen the discussion, train hundreds of thousands of new engineers, and get them on the right curriculum to understand the importance of these, we're more likely to have a positive outcome than a negative one.
Yeah, and this is something that, I agree with you full-heartedly, which is you need to unlock the models at an abstraction layer that's not just the sort of like API into a model layer, which is obviously the perspective that has existed in the industry to date. You need to unlock it at a, how are the models being built? The open sourcing of the models. What is the data used to build these models? And unlocking these lower layers of abstraction in the infrastructure hierarchy then allows for the adaptation of these models to actually get around all these social issues that we've been talking about for years and years and years.
Yeah, and it's this interrogation of how it's done. Like, to be honest, you talk to any of the big model people, they don't actually understand how the models really work. It's like, how has it got so smart? We kind of know, we don't know. That's terrifying, right? And now that we've got this kind of instruct basis, so most people are adapting instruct ones. Like I said, we released TRLX. You can take a 20 billion parameter model and instruct it down by removing those extra neurons. We're not sure what that looks like in terms of like, you just removed a bunch of little brain cells. Like, what does that actually do? And people are kind of barreling ahead without giving any transparency on that. Let's make it so it is interrogable, And then maybe we can curb some of these bad outcomes, while at the same time promoting some safe things because everyone understands how this is, and more people are bought into it. So one of the things we're doing is sponsoring the Fast.ai courses, which are one of the best courses for converting programmers into ML developers. And so we've got Stable Diffusion there, but we'll have that across the entire ML stack to bring in more diverse voices. In fact, from our first 100 employees at Stability, we had one PhD, which is as differentiated as you can get in AI.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And I do think that I think you've used the word collective to describe your team at Stability AI. It truly is it's an incredible collection of people, very diverse backgrounds, and that are sort of unified by this mission.
Yeah, and I think this is the thing. It's a core team, but then it's a couple of hundred collaborators and 100,000 people in our community. And we want these to continue growing because we believe this community should be everywhere, from Uzbekistan to Indonesia to others, because everyone needs to build this technology for themselves. Again, AI for the people, by the people isn't just something that we say. It's something that we want to enable to happen because nobody knows what's best for people in Vietnam except for Vietnamese, right? And others. And this technology should be available to the world.
Yeah. Yes. AI for everyone.
AI for everyone.
AI for everyone.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to ask you this question because I think I might know the answer, but I think it's a fun question to ask. Peter Thiel always had this. He begins 0 to 1 with maybe this prompt for startups, which is what is basically your contrarian belief that other people disagree with you on. And Stability is in many ways a very contrarian company. I'm curious, what's your answer to the classic Peter Thiel question of what's a truth few others agree with you on?
People are good. And so again, you look at the entire AI ethics thing, again, everyone's trying hard, but there's this inherent belief that if you give people access to powerful technology, the outcome will be bad and make the world worse. My contrarian belief is again, look at social networks. We're all aware of some of the benefits, but in general, people like these manipulators and things like that. I don't believe that centralized control over information superhighways is good. I believe instead that we can come together with diversity and build better systems together. And that's the way we can scale. And that's the opposite of what a lot of other entities believe.
Right. Yeah, it's a powerful idea, but I think that what we've seen from the community, the Stable Diffusion community, and all the incredible people who have built on top of your platform, it's incredibly creative, and it's brilliant.
Yeah, there's this activation energy that caused that time. It's like the early days of Web3, but not crap, you know? Like, it's actually useful right now. And I mean, this is one of the things, like, we all have dreams of the future, like, you know, just self-driving cars right now, $100 billion has gone into that, you know? And now we're just seeing something here. The Web3, hundreds of billions of dollars. This area is just starting now. It's going to be the biggest investment theme in the world because all static content will turn intelligent. We have compression, which is intelligence, and that's crazy. And people are being attracted to that. Like, I've had people literally fly over, please don't do this, and camp outside our offices and say, I want to be part of this. You know, that's amazing. And again, it's something that should be enhanced by building strong communities, hopefully, where people can collaborate because people want to believe in something bigger, and especially changing technology around that.
Yeah, it's a very compelling, very compelling vision. You know, one of the things that we talk about is this concept of the intelligent internet, right? And this idea that, you know, all of us will have, you know, very personalized AI that's attuned to our preferences that will enable sort of a new form of the internet. What does that look like to you? You know, one click deeper. How do you think it changes the interaction models with technology?
So I think this has been coming already. So one of the ways that I describe Stable Diffusion is a generative search engine. Like, you don't need to use Google image search anymore because you can just make it. An image will be solved in a year, not by one model that's zero shot, but by putting this in a pipeline at the right place and having human-in-the-loop interactions, you know? Like the work that you do at Scale AI, understanding how humans do that at a scale and having these engines, it will allow us to have even better experiences that understand what we want, right? So it's a combination of these things. What that looks like practically is like, if you look at the MacBook M1, 16.8% of the chipset is a neural engine that's not really used. Why? Because once they get to 80% penetration, obviously they'll go straight to transformer-type engines, and Siri will go from Siri 1, which is a bit crap. I think it took me somewhere else, to Siri 5. No offense to anyone from Apple. But, you know, this is happening at scale everywhere. Intelligence at the edge, and the models, again, are getting smaller and smaller so you can do that. So OpenAI did a wonderful job with GPT-3. It's 175 billion parameters. InstructGPT is 1.3 billion parameters. You know, we're building chinchilla scaling models all the way up to 67 billion parameters. You'll be able to chop and change and kind of adjust those language models down to just a few hundred million, like we just released one of the best Korean language models with our polyglot software. This will enable us to have models on the edge that translate and remove the boundaries between humans and computers. And I think that's insane because then you can put yourself into that and you can have your own knowledge and you can create your own worlds. Like, I don't believe in this metaverse concept where you all go and visit somewhere that you pay 47.5% to create anything. You know? Instead, it's about everyone having their own worlds, their own communications, and the AI helping you bridge that between each other. Because communication is difficult now, and like I said, we've added that extra bit of text and now visual. So you can really express yourself and communicate better and find the things that you want.
Yeah. I mean, and it's already really happening. I mean, I think that everything that you're describing it doesn't even, you know, it's inspirational, but it doesn't feel that far. You know, it's not far away. It's like a stone throw away.
Yeah, I mean, like you can download Stable Diffusion right now. It's 2 gigabytes, and it runs on your MacBook M1. And you can customize it with all your own images. It's like, look, it's Alexander on the moon, or kind of this or that. And that's amazing because it can create anything. Like, again, anything is just really hard to wrap your head around. And you're like, I've just downloaded this game from EA. It's like 400 gigabytes or something like that. You know, this file can create anything. What does the future look like with this new alien technology? We're not sure. But it should mean that we can enhance our ability to communicate, to interact, and others. And again, it's no longer a Web 2 or classical internet where all the AI and value was in the middle, and it directed you and served you ads and fed on your attention, because the objective function is basically manipulation. Instead, it pushes it out whereby you have your own AIs. And that's beyond a Siri-type thing, because it can literally be on the edge. Like, the big models still need to be trained in the center, and we still need to have national models and cultural models, and every company will have their IP turned into models, but that's a very different paradigm. It's kind of what Web3 wanted to be, but didn't quite get there, I think.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting point that you're bringing up, which is sort of, you know, again, referencing Peter Thiel, he had this quote that, you know, if crypto is libertarian, AI is communist, something along those lines. And it's probably actually flipped where crypto seems extremely centralizing. But what Stable Diffusion and Stability AI have demonstrated is that artificial intelligence has this ability to be incredibly decentralized and incredibly liberating.
Yeah, and I think, again, this is the beauty of this technology whereby, like, you're doing all the computation up front. So, I mean, to be honest, we optimized Stable Diffusion, so it was only 150,000 A100 hours, whereas kind of our open clip model was 1.2 million, et cetera. It's done in advance, so then it means you have to do very little computation at the edge to actually create anything. And it's kind of the flip of what happened before with big search engines and data sets. Where looking up the data was very cheap, but then kind of doing the inference was hard. It's the other way around. So you can actually go the other way in Stable Diffusion as well. You can put in a prompt, an image, and you can get the prompt. But that's highly computationally intensive. And that flipping of the paradigm is what allows it to, you said, flip from crypto being one way in AI to the other way around, which is very ironic, I think.
Yeah, super ironic. And I think this is like, I want to just stress this again, because it's so, everything we've been talking about is so, in many ways, counterculture, obviously, to right now, the big theme in AI is, hey, scale is all you need, and just keep scaling up the models, and magic stuff will happen. And I think a lot of what you're talking about is like, let's build smaller models. Let's build models that are more democratized. Let's build models that have the ability to impact a broader set of people. And you get same levels of performance if you sweat the details and the data up front.
Yeah, and I think this is the thing, like, Scale AI, right? It was scaling to big models now. Now it's scaling to the world. It's scaling to 1 billion people. This is the 1 to 1 billion people moment, right? Because these transformer models and others, they've only been used by a few million people. We've already got 1.5 or maybe 2 million users of Dream Studio, but we think there's about 20 million users of Stable Diffusion already within a few kind of weeks. Like revenue is always nice, we've got revenue, all these kind of things. But as you see integrations into Canva and Adobe, and we've got the video games company and other things, 1 billion people use this technology in the next couple of years. And then it's about how people use the technology. Because again, big data age was about that inference to target you, and who you were kind of mattered now. With the instruct models, it's about how you use the models to make them more efficient, to understand it, just like we specialize. So it's like, I view the models almost like our training takes it to a kindergarten or a high school level soon, and how are you going to specialize after that? It's not one model to rule them all, although you can auto-regress them and things like that. It's multiple models for different things in the right place at the right time to make your life better.
Yeah, and I think this is the criticality of, a cornerstone of our partnership, obviously, is this instruction component or reinforcement learning with human feedback. And I think it's exactly this point, which is how do we take the technology and make it useful to people and have people sort of guide the algorithms to do things that are helpful and useful to them, rather than, you've painted it perfectly, like rather than the other model where it's some central authority that's deciding how the model should be fit to you. And the fact that, and I want to stress this again, the fact that we're talking about it being on the edge, it being fully democratized, you can have your instructed model on your phone, takes away the sort of component of a central authority that's controlling, your experience with AI.
Yeah, and you might still have big central models that cooperate with the edge models. But again, this is why we created Stability, so that we could standardize a lot of this. This is basically 5G, but for information, as it were. So that's why we're taking this to countries around the world. We're helping set standards, and we're cooperative in that. I know, we put out the ethical use license for this, We are listening to people around attribution standards. We have the content authority with Adobe and others kind of coming to have verifiable output of this generative technology. That needs to be coordinated, because otherwise this isn't coming anyway and it'll be a mess. But if we do it right, then we can really uplift the entire of humanity, which I think is pretty crazy and pretty awesome. And it's the first time we've ever had the tools to do that.
And it's possible, just with the, obviously you all will do incredible new research and there'll be better things in the future. But just with the technology today, I think there's just an incredible opportunity to scale it. You scale it to the billions of people in the world, and it's just going to, it has this immense opportunity and potential for good.
It's that leapfrogging thing like mobile phones. Like right now, one of our projects that we don't talk about much because we've got big announcements coming is that we've been deploying tablets to refugee camps around the world. And we're teaching children literacy and numeracy in 13 months on 1 hour a day. We're going to scale that to tens of millions of kids. But what does the future of education look like? It's AI in everything. And it's reinforcement learning with human feedback. Every AI. I want to call it 1 AI per child, but I'm going to push back against that. Let's go to the future and take AI and bring it back with us. And that AI is not controlled by any one company. It is a common good. How do we build that for the best? That's what we want to collaborate on.
Yeah. I wanted to, one of the things that we've talked about before that I find very compelling is sort of your thoughts on the future of media. And you all announced at your launch event earlier this week a partnership with media companies, in building AI-generated content. So what do you think, broadly speaking, all Stable Diffusion as well as generative AI in general, will do for media?
So yeah, I think what you have right now is, it's a bit like the internet, right? Where you had the static internet and then asynchronous internet, and now it's expanding out into all types of content. Because you can suddenly compress it down to this degree. All content will be interactive and dynamic in the future. And that has massive implications, right? It's like if you want Mario drinking a cup of coffee with, I don't know, like Master Chief, you can't do that right now. But with these technologies, Microsoft will have their own model, Nintendo will have their own model, and Starbucks will have their own model. And those will all be input in something like Photoshop, and you can pay them a small license for each of those. And it can be verified as something that's proper. That's kind of insane. You create whole worlds. Again, this Ready Player One experience. It's not a metaverse, it's a multiverse of all these different things. Although, yeah, I'll probably have to have a chat with Jensen about multiverse versus omniverse. Avengers versus Ben 10. So, yeah, I think that's what it's going to be. There won't be a single company in media in the next 5 years that will not have a foundation model compressing their media. Because you know text to video is coming. You know that text to audio is here, text to image is here. And as you combine them all, that's super powerful for new experiences that are interactive and can tell stories.
Yeah, and I do think that this is a great thing to hone in on, because I think, and again, we've talked about this before, but stories are at their core a sort of like primitive for humanity. You know, like we communicate in stories. Stories are powerful on their own, and anything to empower storytellers, I think, is always great for humanity. And
making people believe they're storytellers. I'm like, forget about consumption. Let's go for creation. Creation beats consumption any day. And again, we're moving from an internet of consumption to one of creation where you can tell your stories. People don't believe they can be visual. Sure, if you're an artist or something, you do. Or if you're a master PowerPoint teller presentation guy, of which there was probably some in the audience here. The vast majority of the community don't believe that, and suddenly they become capable of doing that. Like, I genuinely believe this is one of the biggest moments since the Gutenberg Press allowed people to write and spread media that way. Because now we can create visuals and communicate visually without any barriers. Like, we're one part of that, but it's going to be the community taking it forward and thinking about what's new ways to communicate visually, textually, audio, to create narrations and narratives that can go around the world, as opposed to going through centralized entities, which then optimize for engagement. So one of the issues with YouTube and why kind of some of the extremism went big on that is because YouTube optimized for engagement, which was extreme. And so extreme stuff was engaging. It wasn't anyone's fault. No one did that deliberately. But it was just a byproduct. Now we can think about new ways to exchange stories and information and things like that and find the things we need. And I think this is the last time that will happen. It's an inflection point in the way we are as almost a race, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, and you know, I think it's sort of like almost to your point on the intelligent internet. It's like now we have computer read and computer write, and human augmented computer read and computer write, and you know, all these new capabilities that exist to empower just a much more vibrant internet.
Yeah, and you know, it can be used to empower or it can be used to enslave, right? Almost. Like, these are really persuasive technologies. And so again, this is why we need to, it's almost like, again, we rewind to the start of social network. And we have the opportunity to also build the countermeasures and the counterbalances and make them open and available to everyone. Because no technology that's powerful is only good or bad, because it's powerful. And it's about how the person using it does it. So as a society, we have to come together to ensure that it's overwhelmingly good as opposed to bad. But you only do that by making it a more diverse discussion and bringing in more people to opine on that, and then build. Just build, build, build.
Totally. You know, there's tens of thousands of members of the AI community sort of listening right now and listening to this conversation. I think one of the great calls to action should be to all the members of the AI community. How can we ensure, as an open community, that this technology is used for good and that there's we don't face a lot of the negative externalities that people have been afraid of? What would your recommendations to the audience be, or what would your sort of advice be to the builders in the audience?
It's literally just join the communities and make your voice heard. You know, it's self-organizing. So if there's something that worries you, organize it, speak up, and people will listen. Otherwise, there's no way to have that communication unless we do what we're doing right now. Everyone is a part of the community because this is technology for humanity. We do not have all the right answers, and we're trying to figure it out. So literally, it's been 8 weeks and 2 days. The amount of feedback we've got, we're revising a lot of different things. But again, it's not we, it's kind of us. We're just one point that helps coordinate a lot of the resources around this. It's the community that's building. And it's a community that will feed back, and then they will decide. For every single country, race, culture, etc., they'll make their own decisions on how these things are. But as the AI experts who've been privileged enough to have the education to have thought this through and other things, you should speak up and guide it, you know? If there's something you're not happy about or something you think is worrying, speak up, formalize it, form groups, let's go.
Yeah. And last question for me, this has been awesome, Emad, by the way. What are some of the things in the future that you're deeply excited about? And try to be as specific as possible about what you're looking forward to.
Seriously, I hate PowerPoint. Yeah. Again, no knock on Microsoft. They're doing the best they can, and they'll have intelligence there. But like, I am excited about the ability to, again, tell the stories. Like, I started my career in film, organized the British Independent Film Award, and I always thought, what if I could make that and have this entire narrative to tell the story? What if I could recreate the last season of Game of Thrones and make it not crap? You know, these kind of things. I think that's nearly within our power, and in the next 5 years, I think we'll get there, and again, that's insane. I don't think anyone's expecting it, but you should, because you know, with the power of community, it's going to come to be.
Yeah, it's going to be incredible. I think the script I'm excited for Stability or the community on top of Stable Diffusion and your other products to build the script to movie pipeline that'll make it so that all of us amateur playwrights can become movie producers.
Yeah, tell the insane life story of Alexander.
Yeah, not too interesting yet, but we're working on it.
You got some time.
We got some time.
Yeah.
Emad, thank you so much for everything you've done for the AI community. Genuinely, it's been absolutely incredible, and thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, buddy.